Welcome to the Feeding Our Young podcast. Have you ever heard the phrase, nurses eat their young? Feeding Our Young is more than a podcast. It's a movement. It's a desire to see new nurses of all ages be supported and uplifted by their peers. And it starts with me. It also starts with you. So join our host, Eric Miller, registered nurse of nearly 20 years and adjunct clinical instructor, and today's honor guest, that would be me, Rachel Inman Segura, and be ready to have your life uplifted so you can, in turn, uplift others. Welcome to the Feeding Our Young podcast.
Hello and welcome to this episode of the Feeding Our Young podcast. Today, I want to start by asking you a question. And the question I want to ask you is, how many lives have you lived? Yeah, that's the question I want to ask. I'm not necessarily talking about past lives. No, I'm talking about, let me rephrase it. How many lifetimes have you lived? Because today's honored guest, I am so freaking excited to talk to. I feel like I knew her from at least a lifetime or two ago. Sadly, I do not have any famous nurses from the 1800s here in studio with me. I am talking about someone who I got to work alongside back in the peds world back in the day, and life has taken us in different directions. And I'm not going to speak for her, but I definitely have lived a lifetime or two since I've seen her, just based on life events and things of that nature. So without further ado, the one, the only Rachel. Rachel, how are you this fine afternoon for you, morning for me?
Afternoon for me. I am doing very well. Thank you, Eric. And I agree. Definitely some lifetimes, maybe 3 for me.
Okay.
4.5 or so, maybe. Yeah.
So between the two of us, we've got somewhere around, 3 to 6, 7 total. So this is good.
Perfect.
This is good. A lot of experience and wisdom y'all are going to get, or just a lot of catching up. I don't know. Maybe this will be 30 minutes of us just...
Sure, that
so
works
how you
too.
been? What's going on? All right. Well, enough about that. Let's introduce you in the traditional manner. First of all, who the heck are you?
So my name is Rachel again. I am a nurse practitioner and I currently live in Maryland. I graduated from WSU in 2008 with my bachelor's in nursing. Started at Sacred Heart, worked in peds there where I met you. Did some time in the NICU. Loved that. Did my graduate degree through Gonzaga. Graduated with my FNP in 2016, and then moved to Maryland in 2017. I've worked in peds, primary care, urgent care, and I really, really, really love concussion care.
Oh, and we're going to unpack a bit of that, I imagine. But before we do, what are 3 words that you chose to describe nursing school?
Anxiety, overwhelm, and insecure.
Beautiful. We'll talk about those at the end. And then, do you have 3 favorite songs in life right now?
Ooh, good question. Long-term favorite song, number 41 by Dave Matthews. Number 2 would be Opalite by Taylor Swift. And for some reason, it's just fluffy and fun, and I really like Espresso by Sabrina Carpenter.
Oh, I love it. And Espresso by Sabrina Carpenter has definitely come up before as a favorite. It's kind of fun for me, A, to learn new music or to hear new music, and B, to see kind of like maybe some commonalities amongst honored guests that even though we're all nurses, we come from different walks of life, and yet there are these songs that just seem to like dovetail in. Noah Kahan is another artist that shows up a lot in the top 3, Taylor Swift, Noah Kahan, Jelly Roll. He's got a lot of commonality there with some nurses here, so I just love that. Anyway, let's a few more fluff questions. I want to get to know you, let everybody get to know you, and then we're going to talk nursing for a minute here. But first and foremost, tell us about your family, whatever you want to share.
Okay. So I met my husband in Spokane when he was still in the military. He was there for 1 week. And we met on Tinder. And here we are. It's been over 10 years since we met.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. So I moved over here with my son at the time, who is now almost 19 and will start at WSU this year. My bonus daughter is 14 now, but I met her when she was 5, and then we
Oh.
have a 4-year-old together. Fun, quirky side story that I love to throw out there. His ex-wife and I are now pretty much best friends. And
What?
yes, and it was a little rocky at first for sure, but in the last couple years, I think this last time was our 5th annual family camping trip together, and I got ordained to marry her and her now husband. So yeah, it's interesting, but it's great. Our 4-year-old calls her auntie. She wants to go to auntie's house all the time, probably because she gets spoiled. But yeah, it's a really fun dynamic.
I am simultaneously shocked, and yet also that doesn't surprise me at all knowing you. You know what I mean? Like, wow, that is amazing. I love that. Any furry pet babies in that family
all
as
the
well?
pet babies. So I have an Amstaff that I got in Spokane. Came from the pound when she was a puppy, but she looks very much pit bull. Her name is Peanut. She did get flown over here after I moved because I flew all over here and had my stuff shipped.
Yeah.
And that was interesting because apparently you cannot send them in a regular kennel. So we had to buy an $850 kennel to ship her over here.
Oh my gosh.
So that's how much you know I love that dog. And then we also have a pug named Waffles, a cat named Clever, and our newest addition is my baby that's very, very spoiled. And it is a naked cat or a sphinx, and her name is Sisu.
Sisu. What is it like petting a naked cat?
Not what you would think,
Really?
honestly. I had never even held one or pet one until I picked her up at the airport. It's more like velvety than anything. And like a little bit of like peach fuzz stubble.
Oh, and you said, and warning to anyone out there, we may hear Sisu, or at least see Sisu, which means you won't see her at all. But where does she like to live there, Rachel?
On my shoulder. And if I were a pirate, it would be very fitting. But I'm not, and she's a cat, so...
All right. Well, like I said, she wouldn't be the first, and she won't be the last pet on this podcast. That's for sure. Incredible. Well, then, Rachel, it sounds like you're a very busy woman. You've been busy as long as I've known you. You went back. You became a nurse practitioner. We got all the things to talk about there. What are you doing when you're not busy with all the things professional?
With all the professional things.
Yeah.
I actually... Back up. I have named our house. I love our house. She has a name.
Okay.
And the reason that is important is that I recently redid my voicemail. And on there I have, nurse practitioner for, XYZ urgent care, as well as the co-owner and manager for Lady Henrietta May McHouserton of the Estuary, which is my house's name, or ST for short. So essentially right now, I am doing a lot of home projects. I am doing a lot of kids to ballet and softball, things like that. And then I am also still writing on the side.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so, unpack that a little bit. Because as I understand it, you wrote a book, if I remember correctly, maybe working on another?
I did. I wrote the book, started in lockdown in COVID. Finally kind of had some time to get it polished a little bit, and I'm currently working on the blurb and looking for agents. And then in that time, I've started the second one as well. I'm about halfway through that one.
Oh my gosh. Okay, you have to keep me posted when that comes out.
I will,
because,
for sure.
If who knows, maybe someone listens to this well down the line, and let's assume the book's already out by that point. What's the title? Or are we in the sharing place yet?
Nope, I can be in the sharing place.
Yeah.
So the first one is called The Right One, but it's WRITE. Little pun there. I love puns. And it is set in a fictional Florida beach town, small town, but the entire town is full of ridiculous puns. It's part of what I like about it. Is it's just some things are really, really corny. From beta readers I've had, the favorite is the geriatric lady that nobody actually knows how old she is, and she wears muumuus and drinks Moscow Mules all day long, and is very quirky.
Okay, this needs to come out like yesterday. I need to read this book. Oh my gosh. Okay, well, and talking about location, because you did touch on the fact that you moved from the Spokane area. You're in Maryland. If you want to share it, where's your hometown? If not, that's fine too. But what do you love most about your hometown in addition to that?
At least where I am right now, I can basically close my eyes and throw a stone and I get to where I want to go. I am right between DC and Baltimore, so any big things we can go. It's not a huge drive. I am, 8 to 10 minutes from multiple grocery stores, Old Navy, Target, and I really just don't travel. When I was still working in the concussion clinic in person, I would have a lot of patients who drove up from other areas in Maryland because they don't have concussion care, most places, shockingly. And they would say where they were from, and I would just be like, I am so sorry. Like, you would think after however many years, I should know where this is, but I don't because I never leave my bubble. Like, I'm just always here. This is my bubble.
And it's a named bubble at that, which is fantastic. And would you say that that's directly in direct opposition to your experience living in Spokane, being such a stone's throw away from almost anything?
Yes, definitely. You're way further to drive if you got to go to the South Hill or up on Division, and yeah, this is much closer for sure.
I love it. And I love the fact, because like whenever and I don't travel much myself, but when I do get to travel to places like that, been to Virginia, stayed, there for graduation. And it's amazing all the places you can go. You know what I mean? You're just hours away from X, Y, or Z. We could have gone to South Carolina. We did go down to a Florida beach. We went, you know what I mean? There's all these different places you can go. And when you're in Washington, you're like, well, you can go to Canada. Or you can go to Idaho or Montana and Oregon and California if you're really feeling adventurous. But otherwise, that's about it. Yep. You're up in the corner, you know what I mean, in such a weird state. Okay, enough babbling. Let's talk nursing. Golly, Rachel, 2008, you said that feels like, as we've already established a few lifetimes ago. Let's dial it back a little bit before then. What jobs did you have before nursing? Was nursing always was that your first profession, or did you have other jobs before that?
Nursing was my first official profession.
Awesome.
I worked for an apartment rental company when I lived in Pullman. When I was going to WSU, I worked at Starbucks for a while. I worked at Macy's, and that was basically what I did before I graduated.
Awesome. And then why nursing? What got you into the profession?
That is a long story, but I will make it succinct.
Oh, no, sister. We got time. This is where I shut my mouth and we just listen to you as a collective audience.
So when I was much, much younger, my cousin, who is older than me, was in nursing school, and she became a pediatric nurse, and I was obsessed. I have been obsessed with babies and little kids since I was one. When I was 5 and 6, I was trying to carry the babies around and change their diaper and all of those things. So definitely always been into kids, babies, that sort of thing. So I had it in my brain for years and years and years that I was going to be a pediatric nurse too. When I was in 5th grade, I remember we made these turkeys, and you had to dress them up as what you were going to be when you grew up, and then write a little sentence. And I made a pediatric nurse turkey, which is really awkward if you think about what it looked like, because it was a turkey.
a pediatric nurkey.
Yes, exactly. See, and I was not that clever when I was in 5th grade.
You see why I need to read your book, okay? Anyway, keep going. I'm sorry.
That's fair. So anyways, I kind of grew out of that after a while. For a while, it was I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to be an OB. I wanted to be an ER physician. And then I was like, you know what? I am really good at marketing and communications and these sorts of things. And that's what I should be doing with my life. So I started WSU with the intention. I went to the Edward R. Murrow communications school. I worked at the Daily Evergreen in the advertising department. And because I had a mandatory sociology, credit type thing to get taken care of, I was reading a story one day about the author was visiting an inner city school, Chicago, somewhere like that. And the principal nudged the author and pointed out the little kindergartner who was putting his chicken nuggets in his pocket because he knew he wouldn't eat for the weekend. And I am not a crier, and I cried. And I just thought, I cannot be the person that makes the really awesome advertisement for the toy that either A, they know they're never going to get, or B, they'll think just maybe for my birthday or something, and then they still don't get it. So I literally changed my major the next day back to nursing because I just felt like I needed to do something that was not whatever else that was, whatever other path I was on.
Oh, and I mean, from a pocket full of chicken nuggets, you know what I mean? This, my heart is already, sorry, continue. Oh.
Nope, that's it. That's where you got me from. So, yep, I went through nursing school. I did pediatrics, which I was really, really, really lucky to get a spot on. And I went on to get my master's because I really wanted to teach. I wanted to have a clinical group. I wanted to, funny enough, not eat the young. I spent at least 2 years, I think, in peds, where every time we had a student, if the charge nurse would be like, okay, who wants a student? And then everybody would sit there. So I was just, I don't want you to feel like you're not, welcome here. Obviously, someday you are going to be the one wiping my bum. And therefore, I want to make sure that you know what you're doing. Yeah. But I typically took students as much as I could. And I ended up getting my FNP instead of the education route because it was only a handful of credits more. And I figured, it'll give me a little bit of more variety or opportunity, which has worked out for me for sure.
Awesome. And so how has that worked out for you? Go ahead and continue your career from that point.
So when I moved over here, I started at a pediatric primary care clinic, which I did love for a lot of different reasons, but I did not stay there for a lot of different reasons as well. One of them, even just being the commute was pretty far from me. In the morning, it was 45 minutes, and in the afternoon or evening, it could be an hour and a half to get home. And that was not my jam, obviously. If I like to be 10 minutes from everything, me driving that far was not fun for me. And then I have done urgent care since, and then I worked 6 years in the concussion clinic.
And so this is what intrigues me. Go ahead and describe for us, a concussion clinic, because my only experience, granted, not necessarily as those that can see me physically know that I've not been gifted athletically in my life. So I never had to worry about concussions growing up in that regards, playing only tennis. However, with our accident and everything else I did, that was my one concussion in life, and it was nasty. And unfortunately, it was a overnight thing. And then, from my perspective, in that regards, no long-lasting issues from that. So describe for us, what is it like having a concussion clinic? What type of patients are there? What do you do for these patients?
Sure. First, I want to backtrack and say that you are athletic, because don't you run 500 half marathons a year?
Okay. No, yeah. I mean, okay. That is interesting that you point that out, because I was just talking to someone the other day about how you can't, that perspective of yourself, right? The self perspective, how you see yourself. And I grew up not being athletic, not part of formal sports and all that. None of that. I played tennis recreationally, maybe, but my hobby outside of high school was working. I was working since I was 14. And so it was high school or work. And so I never viewed myself as an athlete. And I still don't, despite having run for the last 11 years, thanks to my wife. And I don't know, maybe I need to stop saying the things that I'm saying about myself in that regard. So thank you for pointing that out.
Just reframe it, right?
Reframe it.
You're not a contact athlete.
There we are. I'm just a very slow, plodding along, dedicated running athlete. I love it. Okay, sorry.
Okay, so back to concussions.
Yes.
I actually, and again, this all ties together, took this job originally because I saw the ad on Indeed, and it said neurology, and I was like, ugh, that's kind of terrifying. Neurology is a scary thing, right? That's the one where you're like, oh, it's the brain and all these things. But it was also 8 minutes from my house. So I put in my application anyways, and interviewed, and I ended up getting the job. The director, who has since retired, became the best mentor I've had as a nurse practitioner, though she is a physician by training. But I ended up starting to really like it. And we saw, they are still going. I took the time because I am able to write and do these other things, very lucky but I got out of the full-time or the scheduled positions through them. But we would see workers' comp patients, so anything from somebody had a file cabinet that got opened in their head to somebody had a huge lead pipe fall on them without having a hard hat on, something like that. Tons of high school athletes, sports in general. I will tell you, the surprising one that you would not know is that the least amount of the concussions I saw sports related were any sort of martial arts. And the most that I typically saw were girls soccer and girls lacrosse, because girls are vicious. Vicious.
No, very much so.
Yes.
So I was in line waiting to get some food at this function, and some of my senior students are there. I'm kind of reconnecting with them, and one of them standing behind me in line. And she talked about how I said, well, how have things been in the last year since I last got to teach you in OB? And, we're now, graduating all the things. And she's like, oh, Eric, she goes, I missed a little bit of time because of this co-ed soccer thing that she was doing. She goes, this gal, this other this is our year. It's our senior year. I feel like we're going to win this championship, whatever the case may be. She's like, this girl, she just ran right through me, broke her nose, and ended up getting a concussion and having to take some time off. And so there you are. I mean, it's so serendipitous and funny how, you're talking about this just days after she told me about this story. Crazy.
The same thing. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. There's a lot of things people don't know. I could literally talk to you for an hour about concussions, which I do. I actually teach the concussion lecture for our urgent care incoming fellows that they have for advanced practice providers. And that is an hour long, so I won't talk that much. Things that I think are at least interesting is that you may not have any concussion symptoms for the first few days. So people kind of go, well, wait a second. Why, man, I didn't have a headache until, it's been 5 days, things like that. That's very, very common for you to not have any of those symptoms immediately. On average, you're looking at about 6 weeks before you feel close to your baseline. I've had people who it was 4 days, and I've had people that it took them a year plus before they were feeling like they were getting back to where they wanted to be. Some of the pivotal things in concussion care that people don't realize is physical therapy, occupational therapy, and speech therapy. Just like you would see in the hospital and things, they are pivotal in helping people get their balance back if they've got musculoskeletal issues. A lot of PTs do vestibular stuff, which is very, very helpful. And OTs can get additional certifications to do vision therapy, which again is a big issue with concussions.
Wow. I'm just sitting here listening. I'm like, go ahead. You're going talk an hour. We're fine. This is it. This is what your episode's going to be. No, that is incredible. And I can see why you're so passionate about it. And your passion is definitely evident. It's definitely evident. That is incredible.
Oh, I was going to say, I had somebody ask me this a while ago, and they were like, well, what is your favorite thing about your job? And I was like, discharging my patients. And she looked at me like I was kind of like a horrible person. And I was like, no, because everywhere else you work in primary care, you're going to see them over and over and over again. They're constantly needing their blood pressure or their diabetes managed. They need all of these things. But when I am done with somebody, bye. It's because you're better. It's because I fixed you. Essentially, I healed you, all me, by myself, for sure.
Well, then let me ask you. And so, we traditionally follow kind of a pattern here, and today is not that day. This is for those of you that are type A and are like, oh my gosh, we need to. But I'm going to ask the following question, which is normally kind of an intro question, but you'll see why it fits here. So then, Rachel, what is it that inspires you most?
There's a personal and a professional version, right?
Yes. Yeah.
I would say career-wise, that's really it. It's the recovering, right? It's helping them to, feel calm in a time of terror. And specifically with concussions, right? This is your brain. I would tell people all the time, yeah, you can live without a kidney. You don't need your legs, but you need your brain. So it's okay to be scared and nervous. And one of the things I love the most about even being a nurse and inpatient is the same thing I love about being an NP, and that's the education. It's helping people understand, I am not going to give you antibiotics for your sinus infection because you don't need them, but let me tell you why. Yeah. And then I can go through all the guidelines, and this is why, and these are the things that we can do to help it and make you not feel so miserable, but you're not getting antibiotics. Same thing with concussions. You're not going to be this way forever. This is the path to expect moving forward. But that is my favorite thing is letting people kind of get better and then helping them feel more comfortable with that along the way.
How does that compare? And I don't want to, I'm not trying to shorten this because it was the professional side of what inspires you that prompted me to ask that question. And I do want to hear the personal side, of course. But on that professional note, in Pete's world, can you compare contrast how that feels right now versus how that felt when you were in Pete's? Were there similarities or was it two kind of different things?
Mostly similarities. I will say the big difference for me, noticeably, was between pediatrics and NICU. And frequently in pediatrics, you had parents that they already know that this works for something, or they already know that they're allowed to do this. And in the NICU, they just wanted to know, what can I do for my baby? What can I do to make my baby better? What can I do? And they were like sponges for all that information, and they loved that. As far as concussions go, similar, like people are like, we've never dealt with this. We have no idea. You're not just supposed to routinely get a CAT scan. People don't know that. So explaining why I'm not ordering that. Here, there's this whole algorithm we follow. You don't need that extra radiation, things like that. But the panic is kind of there, right? Peds inpatient and that it's my brain concussion type thing.
Yeah,
definitely
absolutely.
Don't get that the same in urgent care.
Yes, also true. That is true. I love, and the reason why I asked that is because, so often we're focused on inpatient nursing, right? Whether that's peds or adult or med surg or, ICU, all the things. And so to get a perspective outside the four walls of a hospital, I love like when you can compare and contrast those sort of things. You know what I mean? Because that's not what people are used to hearing. Dialing it all the way back to nursing school as far as that goes. So before we continue your discussion here, I did truncate your who or what inspires you most because, that's your career side, but who else really or what else really inspires you most?
I think my kids might be a common answer, but I really strive to help them to be good humans moving forward. Inclusive and loving and compassionate and hardworking and those sorts of things. And so watching them as they grow and how resilient they are at times can really I'm like, oh, well, man, if Harlow can fall down 3 stairs, Harlow's the 4-year-old, and get up and be like, Mama, I hurt my knee. I need an ice pack. Well, then I suppose, when I'm walking up the stairs and I hear a pop in my knee because I'm old, and can't walk for 2 days, I can probably be resilient too and just put some ice on it, right?
That is a great perspective. All right, well then let's just continue the scattered nature of your beautiful episode here. And I'm just going to jump into the topics that you want to talk about because there may be a common thread. We might be jumping around everybody, but I love these things that you wanted to chat about. So no particular order necessarily. I want to hear your stories. You're a great storyteller. You're a story writer and a storyteller. So there were 2 of your quote-unquote favorite experiences or stories that you wanted to share that highlight vital aspects of nursing, I believe. What were those 2 stories?
I think so. Things that are really important that we may or may not think about, right? Especially in nursing school because you don't have the same kind of experiences, exposure moving forward. Yeah. One of them is just it's a general CYA. And there's a couple different I could do, but the first one would be I was working night shift in peds. I deliberately switched from day shift to night shift because I worked less hours and made the same money. Mm-hmm. And I stacked it all together. I worked 4 12s and then I had 10 days off. So It was fantastic. Yeah. But I got a burn kiddo, which we typically are not a burn hospital. And so we really don't love taking them anyways. And we had a tiny little dinky 24 gauge PIV in this 15-month-old. And the burns were kind of scattered and a decent amount, probably more again than what we should be taking there. But it was the weekend. So we didn't have any of our assistant nurse managers there, anything like that. The charge was fantastic and helped me, do as much as I could. We, talked to the PICU, can you take a look, et-cetera. And over the 2 shifts that I had, this poor little kiddo, my blood pressures weren't great, didn't love them. Hands and feet were a little on the chillier side. And of course she was just miserable too, absolutely miserable. And I asked the very first night, hey, I need a pick. I'm running double maintenance on this girl. I cannot keep running that through a 24 gauge in her hand. And the other sites that we would typically use, such as the AC or something, had burns to them. So I didn't have really a lot of other good access. No, she doesn't need a pick. Okay. But I charted that. Called surgeon, discussed potential for pick, surgeon declined at this time, etc. And throughout the entire next 2 shifts, I was supposed to call and give updates every, 4-6 hours, this, and sometimes it would be give her another bolus. do this, do that, whatever. And I charted every single one of them. What time it was, what I had called to report, what I had, maybe suggested or asked, and in a respectful manner, of course.
Yeah.
And then what the orders were after that. So, orders received for X, Y, and Z. And on the very end of the second night, and again, we had pretty low urine output for this kiddo, who's getting 1.5 and double maintenance for 2+ days at this point. I called, got my whatever, and he was like, oh yeah, go ahead and we'll switch it to D5.5 with 20. And I said, can you just, and I repeated it back to him twice.
Yeah.
And he said, yes, that's what I want. And he was starting to get frustrated. And I said, okay. So I got off. I looked to Meredith, who who was sitting next to me at that moment. I know, Mayor Bear.
Mayor Bear.
And I said, you did hear that, right? You heard all that just went on, right? And she said, yes. And I said, okay. So about 20 minutes later, half hour later, the now former manager of the unit, Emily, it was Emily at the time, who came in, and I was telling her about this patient, and she was like, I'm sorry, what? And so she called the pediatric surgery director, and within 30 minutes, that kiddo was on a chopper on her way to the Harborview Children's Burn Unit because she did not belong in our hospital. I don't know what happened after that, other than I'm kind of lucky, and somebody I went to nursing school with ended up taking care of that same patient. 6 months later, we met up for dinner or something, and we were just chatting.
Serious?
I said, you know what? Yes. I said, I think I actually sent you one you might know. And she goes, we don't get much from Spokane. And then we kind of did the little dance where you're not going to break HIPAA, but you're just trying to see if it's the same. Sure enough, totally the same. Patient ended up in renal failure and needed skin grafts because she was not properly cared for. And I never heard about it again. And the reason I think that's important is that I am relatively certain it's not that it didn't go to court, and it's not that it didn't have issue with it, but I went through and I documented every single thing. Yep. Every time we talked, all of the things I was asking for and reporting, and there was no need to bring me in. I didn't need to go give a deposition about what happened because it was written right there. Clear as day in a timely fashion. And I remember feeling really, really, really relieved that I had done that. Even when I was busy, I stopped and wrote that note. And I was really grateful that I had been able to do that. So I didn't have to go through the trauma of, depositions in court or anything like that.
And I'm glad you bring that up because in the world of Epic, right? I remember when, you were there, I was there when Epic was first rolled out in our hospital. And, one of the key things they're we're trying to get away from a lot of extra charting and all this. We're trying to simplify, streamline flow sheets. Back in nursing school, they said never chart WNL. WNL meaning at the time, within normal limits. But, the joke was it stood for we never looked. And now Epic is WDL, defined limits based. And yet, there's this emphasis and drive. We don't want you guys writing as many notes if you don't need to. And yet, there are those moments where anything serious that happens, I'd rather have someone overchart than underchart in that regards when it comes to, and if there's something that goes down, I have this beautiful patient who has whatever, major struggle, major incident happens, whatever the case may be, I am as detailed. I will take however much extra time I need to write that note. It hasn't had to happen often, thankfully, but when it does, you do. And then, you know what I mean? It is there. It's part of the record. And that way, if, God forbid, Rachel, you were brought in, right? X number, because that can be within, I don't know, however many, 7 years at least of the time of that incident. And you're going in 5, 6, I don't know about you. It could be maybe just a year later. And I'd be like, okay, hold on. What happened? And of course, they let you review the chart and all that. But the point is, you're not only telling someone else, maybe you're telling yourself, putting yourself back in that moment. So CYA, 3 of the most important letters you'll ever have. That was one of your stories.
Yes.
Sorry, there was another story you wanted to share.
Yes, there is another one. Not so much CYA. This is kind of, I did do, like I said, some pediatric teaching at one of the community colleges here for a while. And this was always my last lecture, end of the lecture story for hey, just let's have this in the back of our heads moving forward, right? I was driving along the road, actually headed to the vet to go pick up some medicine for my all chronically needing lots of expensive things, pets. And I looked over out of the corner of my eye and I saw there was a car completely smashed into a tree and it was smoking. And then there was somebody trying to help somebody out of it. And I kind of did the, okay. mandatory, etc. But I thought, you know what? There's nobody else here. I may as well. So I pulled over, came over. Somebody is already on 911. There's somebody else that's kind of sitting there. And the driver was sitting on the ground, like far and like kind of away from the car, but maybe not as far as I would have been comfortable away from the car. And so I, said, hey, my name's Rachel. I'm a nurse practitioner. I do concussion care and stuff. So is it okay if I ask you some questions and do whatever? Super basic neuro exam was fine. Nothing that I was super worried about, including, no cervical spine tenderness, no C-spine step off, things like that we would be worried about. At one point we moved him and the lady who was on the phone with 911 was yelling at me. No, they said don't do that. And I was ignoring her because I told her afterwards, and she's like, "Oh, I didn't know." And I know,
she's
that's
thinking,
fine,
yeah,
that's
she's
why
thinking,
I
like,
ignored you.
Oh my
yes,
gosh!
I already did what I needed to do. That's why I ignored you. So, the police show up, everything else, and it turns out that this gentleman had like some sort of drug paraphernalia or something in his car, and he said he had worked the night shift. He did a double or something. He really needed the money. He fell asleep at the wheel, and I didn't really love the way that the police were questioning him and talking to him. And I say this as the daughter of a former Seattle police officer who's a sergeant for like 28 years. So utmost respect for police, but it just really didn't feel good to me. And I'm sitting right there next to him. I sat down on the ground next to him, because he's just shaking and all of the things that happen after you have a traumatic event. Yeah. And the fire truck shows up. So I give them my quick little, whatever the report is. Not worried about this, but we can't put, pressure on our right ankle or whatever it was. Yeah. And the guy was like, oh, okay. And he just kind of like walked away then and left. And I was like, oh, okay. And then the ambulance came. And it was the same thing as they're putting him into his, the stretcher and whatever else. I'm like kind of giving my 2 cents or whatever. And they're all just like, they could be also watching a really boring game on TV, like with a cup of coffee or something. Like it was very, very unmotivating and really not interested at all in this patient. And I was feeling very frustrated. And I, called my mom afterwards and I was talking through it with her. And she said, well, maybe they've just, seen so many things like this so many times that, it is normal for them. And I said, yeah, but that's the point. Because if you get to a point in your life or your career or the stage that you are in where you are no longer able to care about your patient or be empathetic or put yourself in their shoes or whatever that may be, you need to find something else to do. Whether you get out of that career entirely or you just go, wow, maybe emergency isn't for me anymore. Maybe I should try something like hospice or whatever else that might be. But that is our job as healthcare providers, nurses, practitioners, whatever. Our job is to care about those people, regardless of who they are, where they are from, what they have done, any of those things. It is our job to treat them with respect and listen to their pain and treat in the best way that we can.
Oh, and that is a beautiful story that illustrates that. You're taking me back to, talking about my high school days and my other, job just being my hobby. You know what I mean? Like I go to work and that was it. And I worked in medical records. I actually started out as a janitor at 14. And before I had turned 15, about 6 or 8 months later, worked my way into the medical records department. Now, never mind. This was a different time, a different era, many, many lifetimes ago. For those that are like, dear Lord, there was a 14-year-old touching patient charts. What world are we living in? Yeah, I might have got paid under the table. I don't know. But the point is, I loved my job. But I also remember, I always wanted to respect people that I'm working with and that sort of thing. But you can be having a bad day and you can go to your paperwork job, whether that's, medical records. Well, now it's computer work, but you know what I mean? Like, that, or you're working with whatever that's not involved with patient care. You can have a bad day and that's okay, because guess what, I always told myself, I knew that the papers, the charts, I did that again when I moved over here originally while I was going to school. Those charts aren't going to care if I'm having a bad day. Those charts aren't going to, and I don't have to worry about how that's going to affect my ability on the job, because I can still focus. I just don't have to be my best self in working with patients, because there's no patience here. It's just paper. It's a different story. It's a different story when you have patients. And that's why, you know what I mean? Like you and I, we both worked in different aspects of that peds world. And yet here are you and I in two different worlds today. I wouldn't necessarily say, burnout may have had a part to play in that. I don't want to conjecture anything on your side, but for me, that was it. I was noticing how I was treating my peers and how I was a little more short-tempered than usual, this, that, and the other. And God forbid I let that, you know what I mean? I was not going to let that progress to the point where I became, and my term for it is bitty old nurse. Those bitty old nurses that,
Yes.
and healthcare providers, other providers, and that extends to every area of the field where people are taking care of you as a human being. And so thank you for sharing that story that highlights that for sure. A weird segue here, but I do want to, before your episode ends, I want you to give a chance. I want to give a chance for you to answer the following questions, because there were some intriguing things you wrote under the personal or professional challenges area of your life that you've had. So what did you want to share there? What were some of these personal or professional challenges you've had?
So, there's a couple different professional ones. The more recent both being since I moved here to Maryland, and again, kind of will go along with my ending question theme here eventually. The first place I started as a nurse practitioner here, at one point the MA had given the incorrect meningitis vaccine. She gave B instead of A. And the other provider that was there said, well, don't chart that. And I about fell out of my chair. And I said, well, you have to chart it because she got it. And what if she has a reaction? And so it was like, oh, well, I mean, I guess, but don't tell her mom. And I was like, you have to tell her mom she didn't get the right shot. She still needs the right shot. Like, this needs to happen. And I was completely flabbergasted that somebody who had years of experience was so willing to just completely lie, make something up, or, pretend it didn't happen when, maybe this wasn't life altering, but yeah, what if she did have a reaction to it or something? And like, they wouldn't have known what it was. Fast forward years, I did find out, friend of a friend, that this particular provider was in trouble with the state for not documenting all of the vaccines that needed to be done.
Wow.
Kids had left the practice and gone to new ones, and it was not listed in the state registry that they had obtained them and had to get them again. So definitely sounds like it was a pattern and not a one-time thing.
Yeah.
So that was, again, something that I think challenging was just in that work environment, and having to, as a very, very new grad, fresh across the country, away from most of my family, all of this, and having to like kind of put on my big girl pants and, jump in and say things and stand up, advocate for patients that even if they weren't my patients, which was pretty stressful.
Yeah.
And then the second, again, me and my big girl pants, I don't know what it's about. Because you know what? I hate putting them on. I would rather just like slither away and pretend it never happened.
Yeah.
But when I was working in the concussion clinic, the company at the time, it's now been bought by somebody else, but the company at the time also had urgent care. And they would do like pro bono, the sports physicals for some of the area teams. And because I had pediatric experience, I was voluntold that I was going to go do sports physicals for, the football team at one of these high schools. And so I didn't really feel like it, but okay, fine, I'm there. I had a corner of the locker room, like to myself, which was it. They were having them give urine samples and something else, which at the time I was like, I don't think they do that anymore. Like, I'm pretty sure that's not a thing. And I got through, I don't know, maybe 8 or 9 patients doing everything I could when the owner came in, who was also a physician. And he interrupted me in the middle of me talking to one of these young gentlemen, completely ignored the gentleman and said, Rachel, Rachel, Rachel. And I said, yes. And he said, are you not doing the genital exam? And I said, no. And he's like, well, you have to do that. I said, according to the American Academy of Pediatrics, that is no longer recommended for a sports physical. It's not even recommended necessarily for your yearly physical.
Yep.
Like no, we go above and beyond here. So he basically said, you need to be, this is it. You're doing this. This is your job. And so I said, okay, well, I'm going to need a chaperone. He said, you don't need a chaperone. Sir, I am not
Oh
touching
my
an underage
goodness.
boy's genitals with nobody present. Not
Yeah.
happening. And so he's like, okay, well, the nurse can stand at the door. No, the nurse can come stand where
Yep.
she can see me. I'm not doing this otherwise. Like, that was me in my big girl panties of this is my license, sir, not yours, and I am
Yeah.
not doing this. It was very frustrating, and after everything was over, he had to pull me aside again and lecture me about how, he really wanted us to be doing all these extra things for our patients. And I got in the car, still had to go back and see concussion patients after that.
Oh my
And I actually had
gosh.
like the angry tears because I was so mad that it didn't matter. Evidence base apparently did not matter anymore. And,
Yeah.
my license was in jeopardy based on somebody else's, wanting to look like they're doing more than they need to.
Like I'm speechless. You know what I mean? Like some of that comes from misplaced authority. You know what I mean? You'd like to think we try to assume the best in people, right? Everybody's trying to come from this great.
Yes.
And hopefully it was just a mistaken case of no, this is the way we used to do things. This is the way it still needs to be done, and yet, we're in a field that is always changing, and that is why it is important to be able to be flexible and to change your practice based on what the current evidence shows. And never mind the fact that to me, like that, your story, to me, it stops kind of right at like that point. Explains up to the point of, well, no, you need to be doing this. Well, no, because this is what the new evidence says. But then when you're starting to advocate for having a chaperone there and we're pushing back against that, that's a whole different story. And I love that, hopefully wherever you guys are going, when you take your kids in to go be seen by a provider, like when I go to my doctor's office, my kids' doctor's office when they were kids, you see signs. You know what I mean? If you are uncomfortable, if you want a chaperone, if you need someone in with the provider, please just ask and we will provide one for you. And the fact that that is informed up front and, maybe not as overtly as it should be, but it's there and the information is there. And so the importance of that cannot be understated in any way, shape, or form. I think you've kind of touched on it in spades there, Rachel, before we close in our traditional manner, but you did talk about wanting to be an advocate, standing up for yourself and standing up for your patients. Was there anything else you wanted to add to that, or were those stories seem to amplify but that theme altogether?
A quick one, I guess, when I was still a nurse inpatient, and this was back when, Facebook was just kind of starting to be a thing. I think they just bought MySpace or something, and the whole HIPAA is starting to like see this brand new world because people are posting with their patients and things like that.
Yep.
And I had a very particular kiddo that had been in and out for months at a time. Parents were rarely there. Kiddo would cry a lot and was very sad. They would visit briefly and then would leave again. And I was just really, really frustrated. And I wrote on my Facebook at one point that I just was so, disgusted with some parents or something along those lines. And somebody screenshotted or had sent it to the manager at the time. And I believe that she was looking to move up in the chain of command, which she did eventually. And she kind of chose to make me her poster child. And thankfully, we had a union. I had a union rep come to the meeting with HR, in which I very, very explicitly stated, I did not break HIPAA, correct? And they said yes. And I said, okay, so I did not break HIPAA. I recognize that when I signed my form, say I'm going to work here, that I can protest if I would like, but not if I'm wearing my badge. So I can't protest anything representing wherever it is that I am. And I said, and is that anywhere listed on my page in my information? And they said, well, no. And I said, okay, so I'm not sure why we're here. What is the problem? Like, I can make a distasteful comment and, maybe it was in poor taste. I was frustrated. Like, that's a thing. I said, honestly, I could talk about my coworkers all I want to, and I could say horrible things. And is that nice? No, but that is what the First Amendment's for. Like, free speech. I can do that. And despite all of that, you can still get the write-up. And the only thing you can do, because if you don't sign it, you can get fired, is write on the back. And somebody told me this and I was very happy. You can add an addendum, whatever that is, please see attached. In which case I did. I hand wrote a whole long page of where, that I did not break HIPAA. I did not violate any hospital policies. I did nothing that was actually wrong. But in fact, I, have First Amendment protection, things like that. And again, that was probably the first time I had to really put on big girl pants in the nursing world and say, no, you are not going to throw me under the bus because you want to look good to your superiors. Not happening.
Stand up for yourself. Stand up for your patients. The opportunities for advocacy are endless, as we have you have so abundantly provided evidence for in spades, my friend. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So with that, we'll close in our traditional manner. You chose 3 words to describe nursing school. Remind me, what were they, and why did you pick them?
I picked anxiety, overwhelm, and insecure. Anxiety because I really didn't know what to expect at all. It was definitely far different than, giving vaccines and all of the experience I had had with a nurse myself, right? Going to, checkups and things like that. I didn't have a lot of experience with this inpatient type stuff or urgent care or emergent care, things like that. So the anxiety of not really knowing what to anticipate was definitely a huge thing. And I think anxiety can be one for most people as far as nursing school is concerned, right? Again, It's just stressful knowing, not knowing moving forward. As far as the overwhelm, again, anybody in nursing school or who has gone through nursing school understands that it's from day one, you are bombarded with 62 million trillion things that you have to do, and they all have to be done, and they all have to be done well, and you can't skip one of the 35 steps in making the bed, right? You have to make all 35 steps. And that to me was a big part of the overwhelm. Lastly, that insecure, gratefully, I suppose, in the last 6+ months or so have been diagnosed with adult ADHD. And when I went through some of these questions and going through things with the psychiatrist, it was absolutely eye-opening and flabbergasting. The fact that I didn't recognize some of the things that were really, truly, thought of before as just a hard worker or, such a great student or those sorts of things. I had to work twice as hard as most of my friend group in nursing school, and I would still score lower on tests than they would. I would get distracted by noises. I had one girl, bless her little heart, who sat close to me who had the loudest sighs during tests. Like every other question. And it would throw me off, and I would get distracted, and I would have to try to go back to it. And so I used insecure because I felt like I understood the concepts a lot of the time, and I felt like I could do the job, and I knew that I had this great patient rapport and things like that, but I felt insecure because I was not getting the grades that they got so easily. It would take me twice as long to learn the same thing that it took them to learn.
Interesting. I thank you for opening the door to that, because of course that is something that is not exclusive to you, right? There are other people who have that diagnosis, other people who, you look back and go, oh, this is why this was this way. Or, I was just talking to someone earlier today who had said, I had a lot going on these last few years, XYZ, this thing, happened in my life. And also, I, discovering that I have this adult ADHD, diagnosed either as an adult or kind of taking on that life as in adulthood. And it's just, it's amazing to me, the things that can come up, that can crop up, that can surprise you, life-changing diagnoses, for better and for worse. You know what I mean? For some, it's that life-ending diagnosis, or it provides this sad but for others it just kind of sheds light on, oh my gosh, okay, yeah,
that's
that makes total sense way. Oh man. Yes. All right, well, for whatever reason somebody tuned out and they fast forwarded all the way to here because they know that I ask everybody that they have one piece of advice that they want people to take with them for the rest of their lives. What is that one piece of advice, Rachel, you want people to walk away from your episode kind of carrying with them for the remainder of their time?
The quick and dirty of that would be speak up. And you've heard that I don't like doing that. And again, it's a long story that we don't need, but I use my Aunt Susan, who is somebody who is very fair and very polite, but you will not, pull the rug out from underneath her. Like if you promised a service, you are going to give that service. And again, she's not rude. She's not, what anybody would call a Karen these days. She doesn't raise her voice, but you are going to do what needs to be done. And so that's kind of become a family thing now, where we say, well, put your Aunt Susan pants on and go get XYZ done. And I feel like that can be, speak up can be the same thing. So whether you want to adopt Aunt Susan pants, by all means, go for it. Or just that speak up. So if something doesn't feel right, hey, one time I had an antibiotic that came up from pharmacy and it didn't look right. And I was like, I was relatively new. I'm not really sure what this is supposed to look like. So I called down. No, it's not supposed to have crystals in it. Great. I did not infuse a weird crystallized antibiotic into somebody because it just didn't look right and it didn't feel right. So absolutely jump in, whether it's a procedure that you're supposed to be learning or you're just observing and you're terrified because you're in surgery and we all know how surgeons are, whatever that is, there is no stupid question. And you can be standing up for yourself and your patient just by speaking up.
And you already touched on it. The key piece of that is doing it respectfully. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Granted, there may be a time where that all needs to go out the window, but that's after you've exhausted everything else. You know what I mean? But you definitely, because I think we live in a society where everybody's very quick with their opinions and that sort of thing, and standing up for themselves, and that part is a good thing. But it's the standing up for yourself in a way that, you know what I mean? I'm going to stand up for myself by belittling someone else or by, you know what I mean? Just the character insults. We don't need to add character insults to whatever it is you're advocating for. I bring that up because we had an previous educator on this podcast who said, she got her first year, she was her first year full-time educating students. And so they do their evals. And she came, the few of us met for dinner, just kind of recap that semester. And she came to that dinner just totally downtrodden. And a second one had come as well, a little less downtrodden, but very similar. And both of them had said, you know what I mean? Like, it was because they had just read their evals, and they had read their evals that night before going to bed. And they're like, I'm fine. Like, if you give me, hey, I couldn't learn well because you didn't do this or whatever. If there's actionable steps that you can advocate for, great. But for them, what hurt the most was just the character slandering and stuff like that. And these are, two top-notch individuals. And so, please, with that grain of salt.
Yes. What is fixable versus what is not.
Yes, exactly. Rachel, I can't thank you enough for allowing me just to reach out to you and be like, hey, friend, haven't talked to you in forever. Let's talk for the benefit of others to listen. Is that okay? So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Of course.
You have a wonderful rest of your afternoon. Now, see, I've joined you. We talked long enough. I'm now in my afternoon. Yay.
Yes, we are together now.
Have a good rest of your day, Rachel.
Thank you. You too.
Here's what's happening on the next episode of Feeding Our Young.
The eating our young, just don't do it.
Please
just
don't do
remember,
it.
You started as a new nurse, and maybe you had it all together, but some don't, and some need a little more guidance. Some of us learn by watching, and that is me. I am very visual, and so I really appreciated clinicals and my preceptors that actually taught me, because I had a couple that did not teach me. It was like after the first couple of weeks, they were like, we're just going to watch and see what you do wrong. And it was not okay.
Did you like today's episode of Feeding Our Young? Want to know more about the Feeding Our Young movement? Check out our website at feedingouryoung.org. Would you like to be featured on a future episode? Maybe have Eric bring his unique brand of encouragement to your nursing students or nurses? Please text us at 509-666-5636 or email us at info@feedingouryoung.org. We're so excited to have you return to hear our next honored guest. Be sure to follow us on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Feeding Our Young LLC. Again, that's username Feeding Our Young LLC. Until next time, Be encouraged and go find someone to encourage today.